Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Bob Power, and on behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-hosts, Murdoch Capital Partners and TAA Advisory, we're very pleased you joined us for today's Uranium and Vanadium Company presentations. Our next live presentation is from Largo Physical Vanadium Corporation. Before I introduce our speaker, please note to submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. And all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Jonathan Lee, Chairman of Largo Physical Vanadium Corporation, which trades on the TSXV under the symbol VAND. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, Bob, for the introduction, and I appreciate everyone for joining me here to hear about Largo Physical Vanadium, which is, as Bob said, listed on the TSXV under VAND. And so what is Largo Physical? Here are the disclaimers. And so what is Largo Physical Vanadium? Largo Physical Vanadium was started in Q4 of last year. It's a new physical vanadium holding company that buys and holds physical vanadium, commercial physical vanadium products. Currently it owns or is contracted out for delivery to receive material of about 2.9 million pounds of V2O5 equivalent or vanadium pentoxide equivalent. That's typically in the form of ferrovanadium, vanadium pentoxide, or vanadium trioxide. This vehicle and this company gives a way for investors to get direct exposure to physical vanadium price. And it's a turnkey solution as opposed to buying and holding physical vanadium. There's two advisors to the company. One is Largo. Largo is a leading vanadium and battery producer that's listed on the NASDAQ. And the second is Sprott Capital Partners. They're a well-known commodities investment bank that has actually significant experience in these financial physical products, such as the Sprott Uranium Trust. And so very similar to other physical holding companies, we buy and hold physical vanadium, but one differentiation is that over time, instead of just storing the vanadium in warehouses, VAND is going to use the vanadium's unique characteristics in vanadium flow batteries to, instead of storing it in a warehouse, where we plan on storing the vanadium in these vanadium flow batteries to dramatically reduce the cost of the flow batteries itself, and to generate revenue for VAND investors to offset annual expenses associated with being a public company. So in general, this will actually enable the energy transition and the competitiveness of this flow battery technology, which is a known technology, but hasn't been vastly commercialized due to the cost of the vanadium. So the capital structure of VAND, like I said, it is listed on the TSXV under VAND. We're currently applying for an OTCQX listing, and that is currently in progress. So we should be able to increase the potential shareholder base with that listing, which we hope to have in the next 2 months or so. It's a clean capital structure. We have no cash. No options, no warrants, no debt. Approximately $2.2 million in cash, and we've created this as really a vehicle to get exposure to the vanadium price. And so that is why we do not have any options, warrants. We have no financial leverage. And so, to give you a perspective, since we started this company, the NAV per share has increased by about 28%, and the vanadium price has increased from approximately $7.95 a pound of V2O5 equivalent of our portfolio to about $10.60 a pound of V2O5 equivalent in our portfolio. So VAND is now trading at a 32% discount to our net asset value, which could be a good entry point. And again, it has no debt, no options, no warrants. So it's a very, very clean capital structure. And to the right, you'll see the increase of the vanadium price of our portfolio that since our inception in late September. And so why is vanadium price and vanadium demand going up? Just to give you a simple, this is not on the chart, but just to give you a little bit of background, the supply is generally coming out of four places. The two by far the largest producers of vanadium. China's between 55 and 60% of vanadium production, and Russia through a steel manufacturer in Western Russia represents about 20% of supply. So roughly 75 to 80% of worldwide supply of vanadium comes from either Russia or China, with the remaining between Brazil, South Africa, and some in the U.S. as well. But the vast majority does come from Russia and China as the two biggest producers of vanadium. And so, as you can see, vanadium prices have, since we've done the inception, vanadium price has gone up roughly about 30% since VAND has started trading on the TSXV, and we think that continues. If we look at what is VAND used for, generally speaking, it is used in higher strength steel. So think about construction steel to withstand earthquakes. Think about high strength, lightweight applications like electric vehicles, aerospace in particular. So defense aircraft, commercial aircraft, missiles, etc. Anything where you need higher strength properties of steel, but still have that lightweight. And then the emerging, and that business has been responding very, very nicely since the pandemic and exiting Q4 and into Q1 of this year. And then the last which is growing fairly quickly, is energy storage or batteries. Vanadium is used in these grid scale vanadium redox flow batteries. And that could be a very, very large use case over the next 5 to 10 years with the implementation of vanadium redox flow batteries. Actually, as of Q3, according to Vanatech, which is the vanadium intelligence house, for the first time in Q3 of 2022, energy storage became the second largest source of demand after steel. So it is growing, and it's growing fairly rapidly, and we're seeing that play out. And to give you a perspective on that, every gigawatt hour of energy storage represents about 4 to 5% of global supply. So it is pretty impactful with the implementation of these energy storage batteries, and on the impact of vanadium demand vis-a-vis supply. And what VAND is doing is really trying to exacerbate or push forward or pull forward that demand, because in VAND is, as we talked about in slide 2, VAND is not only storing the vanadium in warehouses, but it is intending to, over time, we're expecting to store the vanadium in the vanadium flow batteries, thereby dramatically reducing the costs. And the cost of the vanadium in a battery is anywhere from 40 to 50% of the actual battery. So by not for the battery customer not having to buy the vanadium, it actually makes the battery very, very competitive vis-a-vis other technologies, because we're dramatically reducing the costs. So it actually will drive vanadium demand through more energy storage uses. And so that's where we think there's a symbiotic relationship where battery customers no longer buy the vanadium. That makes the flow batteries more cost competitive, and that increased vanadium demand could put upward pressure on vanadium prices. And then if you look at the vanadium price chart, which is effectively, what you're buying here is a portfolio of vanadium products, you can see 3 large spikes over the last 20 years. The one in 2004 was an increase in rebar standards that was implemented in China. The one in 07, 08 is one that was a closure of certain mines in South Africa. And the last one in 2018 was additional rebar standards or increased rebar standards in China. And each time in these change in rebar standards, they increase what they call the intensity or the specific intensity of or specific consumption of vanadium in rebar, driving up vanadium demand. And you can kind of see, because there is no financial intermediary, you can kind of see, or financial investor, generally speaking, within this industry, you could see the spike or the increase in vanadium price that happens very, very quickly. In summary, VAND, through its new use cases, one, we can enable the energy transition by facilitating the advent and the increased use of vanadium in energy storage. So we'll enable the energy transition and increase the vanadium demand in a fairly tight supply market. And so, just to give you a perspective, this was to show you the competitive, the technological readiness of the product. 185 flow batteries have been installed over the past 20 years. The main hindrance over these past 20 years has not been the actual technology, but has been the actual cost of vanadium and creating a cost competitive product. So, but just to give you a perspective of the numbers here, roughly 350 megawatt hours of energy storage was created and installed over a 20-year period. Just last year in Q3, China just completed a 400 megawatt hour battery and announced 1 gigawatt hours of energy storage for deployments in 2023. So, to put that in perspective, China doubled what the entire world did, or replaced or doubled what the entire world did in 1 year last year, and has announced 2 installations that could 6x what was done in the last 20 years. So this is a dramatic increase potential of vanadium demand in the near term. And to put this in perspective, each gigawatt hour represents about 4 to 5% of the world's vanadium supply. This is the structure of Largo Physical Vanadium. Again, we hold products in either warehouses as commercial products, or over time we intend to store the vanadium in what they call electrolyte form in batteries. One, to reduce the cost of the batteries, and two, to generate revenue for Largo Physical Vanadium. And we can do this in these flow batteries because of the unique characteristics of vanadium in these flow batteries. Vanadium, think about vanadium in these flow batteries. Vanadium's like a salt in water. And all you do is you put the salt in the water or the vanadium in the solution, and to get it out, you precipitate it back out by neutralizing the solution. It comes back out. So it's fully recyclable, non-degradable. And those unique characteristics allow us to pull the vanadium back out at the end of the life of the battery, and allows the Largo Physical Vanadium and its shareholders to always maintain ownership of the vanadium. And with respect to Sprott has the marketing and financial advisory. They're assisting the company with marketing and advice on getting the name out, getting Largo Physical Vanadium to be known by more shareholders, etc. And Largo has the safekeeping agreement and the technical advisory agreement. Largo buys and sells vanadium every day, so Largo assists on purchasing of vanadium for Largo Physical Vanadium, as well as the safekeeping agreement on risk. Largo is on risk for the safekeeping of the material, whether it is in the commercial products in a warehouse or in the form of electrolyte in the batteries. So in summary, we believe that Largo Physical Vanadium is an excellent opportunity to invest in physical vanadium and vanadium price without, operating risk, political risk, financial leverage, all those additional risks that are associated with miners itself. So you get pure play exposure to the vanadium price. And, we believe that, through VAND, we're expecting to dramatically reduce the cost of the VRFBs to the battery customers, driving battery demand and obviously driving vanadium demand without affecting the battery costs. Remember that, because the battery customer does not buy the vanadium. And effectively, we're enabling the energy transition by making these vanadium flow batteries more cost competitive. And so, with that, I'll open it up to questions. But I see there's some questions here. Here's the next slide, and here are the contact information. I'll open up to questions. I'll read the first question. Will long-term holders of Largo receive any shares of VAND as a dividend, and does VAND have any intentions of listing on a U.S. exchange? I can't really speak to Largo, but obviously Largo is a large shareholder of VAND, and they'll make that decision in due course. With respect to VAND having any intentions of listing on a U.S. exchange, we're in the process of doing that right now through OTCQX. We're making that application, and we're hoping to have that in the next coming months. The second question is, how much V2O5 do you carry how much V2O5 do you carry inventory? So I'll express it as V2O5 equivalent, because Largo Physical Vanadium has 3 products across two or three countries in warehouses currently. We have vanadium pentoxide, vanadium trioxide, and ferrovanadium. On a V2O5 equivalent, we have about 2.9 million pounds. The next question is, you buy the V outright? That is correct. So Largo Physical Vanadium has ownership and title to the physical vanadium, and we continue to. That is a way to get investors exposure to actually owning the vanadium. Question: why do you trade at a 32% discount to your vanadium holdings? That is a good question. I think that is a good investment opportunity for investors to come in at a good entry point. Like I said, we're applying for the OTCQX, and we'll be hopefully increasing the potential shareholder base over the next coming months. Is vanadium used in EV batteries? Vanadium is typically not used in EV batteries. The vanadium redox flow batteries are typical large scale or grid level type applications. They don't have the energy density of lithium ion batteries. But when we think about the wholesale replacement of coal power plants to what they call virtual power plants, you need what they call long duration energy storage. So enough storage to last the entire night to put in conjunction with a solar panels, or during the day for wind turbines. And that long duration energy storage application with virtual power plants is really where these vanadium redox flow batteries are potentially going to get used and have been used in the past, and what we think is going to be used in the future. The next question states, how many megawatts VRBs installed in the US? I don't have the number in the US offhand, but it's likely north of at least 20 megawatt hours based on, but don't quote me on that. But there is quite a significant amount of VRFBs that are installed in the U.S., and we think that that will continue to grow over the near future, especially with the U.S. deploying, the U.S. government with the DOE loans program and the Inflation Reduction Acts. Those two programs are being used to incentivize new energy storage projects within the U.S., and that could be a bullish demand for energy storage products in general, but potentially vanadium redox flow batteries over the coming years. The next question comes from, does Sprott have an ownership in VAND? Sprott does not have to my knowledge, Sprott does not have a ownership in VAND. They have a marketing advisor agreement as well as Turmoil, and Turmoil is a shareholder in VAND. The next question is what will Sprott's role be? So Sprott's is providing the financial and marketing advisory agreement or advisory. So they're assisting us with getting out to investors, marketing the company, and providing assistance in that manner to provide visibility of VAND to potential investors such as yourself. The next question says, can you comment on liquidity in the stock? Appears to have mostly very large trades. There were, the liquidity, right now, the liquidity, there's probably about 20% of float. We're working and we're looking at other ways to increase the liquidity and the volume at Largo Physical Vanadium. And one way to do that is to increase awareness of the company, which we are currently doing. And secondly, we're applying for an OTCQX listing, which hopefully increases the potential shareholder base of Largo Physical Vanadium. And then the last question says, from whom do you buy the vanadium? Is it in concentrate form? No, we do not buy vanadium in concentrate form. All of the vanadium is commercial products, so either ferrovanadium, vanadium pentoxide, or vanadium trioxide. The vanadium purchased to date has been through traders, through producers, through miners, and so it's been through a various number of owners of vanadium products to begin and to assist in the RTO process when going public. Largo Inc. Provided in-kind contributions at a discount to the spot price for shares of Largo Physical Vanadium, and that was that. So that material did come from Largo, but since then, all of the vanadium purchased has been from other parties, whether it be from primary vanadium producers or traders that held vanadium in inventory. Hold on. And so there's a second one. The next question is, can some other metal be substituted for vanadium in flow batteries? I like to quote the DOE the head of the Argonne National Laboratory of the Energy Storage, a woman named Sue Babinich at the IFBF, which is the International Flow Battery Conference. Her comment was around the concept of, if vanadium was low cost and available, we would all go home because vanadium works today. And I say that because that is what Largo Physical Vanadium is trying to do, is basically taking the technology works. What we're trying to do is take out the largest cost component of the flow batteries, which is the vanadium. And so, that effectively that comment and that quote is what we're doing here to go after or making the product commercially viable with reducing the cost of the product. Now, other companies have gone to other technologies, other flow battery technologies, such as iron flow or zinc bromide. There are companies that are trying to do that, and the reason why they went to other metals as opposed to vanadium was because of the cost of vanadium. And so, while they are trying to achieve with more technological risks, what we're trying to achieve through technological advances to remove the vanadium cost. We're doing that here at Largo Physical Vanadium by reducing the vanadium cost to the battery customer. So we're coming out from two different ways, but we think that the technological advantages of vanadium are there and it's real. The next question is, does VAND buy the physical for cash? Correct. So during the RTO process, or the go public transaction in September of 2022, the company raised $30 million, $30.22 million. And since going public, VAND has purchased vanadium products such that our cash balance is now roughly around $2.2 million. So we've spent that most of that capital on physical vanadium products. The next question is, what is the process for issuing new shares? How do you handle this if it continues to trade at a discount? Yeah, so the process for issuing new shares is subject, obviously, to investor demand. But if there is investor demand, we can raise capital at whenever the share price whenever the share price is greater than NAV. So currently, we do not. We are trading at a discount to NAV. This is very similar to something like a Sprott Uranium Trust, where it can raise capital whenever the share price is greater than NAV, and so that is the only limiting factor. And the use of proceeds of a capital raise would be to purchase more vanadium in the spot market. Next question is EOL value of flow battery, percent of initial value. I believe that means end of life value of a flow battery. I'm not sure what the question means, but we could always you can feel free to email me afterwards. But the great thing about vanadium and flow batteries is that the vanadium is recyclable at the end of life of the battery. Like I said, it's like salt and water, or in this case, it's a water-based sulfuric acid solution. And what you do is you neutralize the solution, and the vanadium precipitates out and comes out to the bottom. And so that's the great thing about this is that it's fully recyclable, and that solution is very, very pure with respect to vanadium and very limited other products in that solution. The next question is, how soon will you be selling to grid battery customers? So we're in contracts right now with material we believe that we're going to close this contract in the next month or two. But NL purchased the battery from Largo Clean Energy. It's a 6 megawatt hour battery. It's our intention that vanadium will be under the VAND umbrella, and revenue will be starting to generate revenue from that vanadium through a rental contract, and we expect that to happen sometime in end of Q1 or early Q2. The next questions are, what are your ongoing fees and financial commitments to Largo? So the only commitments are that, as part of the management expenses, there's 85 bips on management expenses. Half of that goes to Largo, and half of that goes to Sprott and Turmoil. So those are the only base expenses. Currently, I serve as the chairman of Largo Physical Vanadium. I do not receive any remuneration. So it's actually a low-cost solution right now for VAND investors. The next question is, does Largo own the VAND in its batteries? So Largo is a shareholder of VAND, but VAND will always own the material in its portfolio. In the instance where I talked about the battery in Mallorca, Spain, the 6 megawatt hour battery that's being commissioned very, very shortly. The vanadium held in that battery will likely be, and we're finalizing this currently, it will likely be ownership of VAND shareholders, and so VAND would own the vanadium in that battery. The next question is, how large is your management staff? So to reduce costs, we keep a very, very lean structure. There are no employees outside of the CEO, Paul Vallant, or he's actually on a management contract. So there are no employees. We've outsourced accounting. We've outsourced CFO services. We've outsourced audit services, et cetera. So, and we have the technical advisory and the marketing advisory agreements with Largo and Sprott. So we're very cost conscious in terms of trying to reduce the costs where applicable. to keep the expenses as low as we can. And we'll go to the next, and that.
Sorry, I don't understand.
And that is the last. That's the end of questions. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or Paul, whose contact information is there. And we appreciate the interest in in Largo Physical Vanadium, and we hope all of you can be shareholders very, very shortly. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.